Hey everyone. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. It really helps YouTube recommend more stories like this one to you. Alright, let's jump right in.
The second I heard the knock, soft, slow, deliberate, I knew it was him again. Not the landlord. Not a package. Just him. The man in 6B. I didn't answer. I never did. But I still crept closer to the peephole, like I always did, like some part of me needed to know. And there he was. Same as every night for the past 2 weeks. Just standing there, not saying anything. Not moving, just waiting. He never knocked more than once. That's what freaked me out the most. It was like he knew one knock was enough. Like he knew I was already watching from the other side of the door, heart pounding, breath caught in my throat, palms sweating against the wood grain. And maybe he did know, because sometimes he smiled, not a normal smile, not friendly. It was the kind of smile you see in old photos of people who don't know how to look human. Too wide, too patient. Like he was enjoying how scared I was. Like he could smell it through the door. I moved into this building 3 months ago. It's a quiet, older complex just outside the city. Small hallways, thin walls, carpet that always feels slightly damp. But it was cheap, and I needed a reset. I'd just broken up with my ex, and I wanted somewhere no one knew me. Somewhere no one would bother me. For a while, it was fine. Quiet, even. The kind of silence that feels like the building itself is holding its breath. Until I noticed the guy in 6B. It started small. The first time I saw him, he was just standing at his door, looking at mine. I thought maybe he was listening for something. Maybe my music had been too loud. But when I opened the door to check, he didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there in that same position. Hand on his knob, head tilted slightly to the left. Like he was mid-thought. Or mid-listen. I gave a nervous laugh. Hey. Everything okay? Nothing. No blink. No shift in his weight. Just that weird, fixed stare. I slowly backed into my apartment and shut the door. That should have been it. But at WS single quotes to the next day, he was there again. Same spot. Same stare. I avoided eye contact and left for work fast, locking the door behind me with shaky fingers. But the moment I got to the bottom of the stairs, I knew he was still watching me from the landing above. I could feel it between my shoulder blades. That cold, crawling sensation of being seen. Then came the knocks. Always at night. Always soft. Never more than once. I told myself it could be someone else in the building. A drunk neighbor. Wrong door. But that excuse died the night I finally checked the peephole and saw him, forehead almost pressed to the door, like he could hear my thoughts. I didn't sleep that night. I left every light on. Sat on the couch with a kitchen knife and all my instincts, screaming at me that something was very wrong. By the end of the week, I developed a routine. Deadbolt. Checked 3 times. Blinds. Shut. Curtains pulled tight. TV. On low, just loud enough to mask footsteps but not too loud to miss a knock. Peephole. Always watched before I opened the door for anyone. I stopped getting food delivered. I started using headphones less. I even bought a cheap camera off Amazon and pointed it at my hallway, but it kept glitching out when I reviewed the footage. Static bursts. Black frames. Once, it looked like someone passed in front of the lens. Just a blur. But the timecode said it happened at 3:12 a.m. I didn't remember hearing anything. I didn't want to remember hearing anything. I asked the landlord about the guy in 6B. He scratched his head, like he had to think real hard about it. Oh, yeah, him, quiet guy. Been here a while, I think. You think? I asked, does he pay rent? Sure, I mean I get the checks. Checks, plural, not from him. I didn't ask more. I just nodded and walked away, gut twisting. The landlord's eyes had gone weird when he talked about it. Like there was something he wasn't saying. Or maybe something he didn't know how to say. Then things started disappearing from my apartment. Not big things. Just intimate things. A pair of socks I was sure I left by the couch. A hairbrush. One of my brass. The worst was my toothbrush. Not missing. Moved. Slightly. Just enough that I knew it wasn't where I left it. Same with the hand towel. Same with a mug that I know I put in the sink, not the counter. No signs of forced entry. No broken locks. I started putting a piece of tape over my door at night, stretched from the frame to the knob. Tiny. Invisible unless you were looking for it. 3 days later, I woke up and the tape was hanging loose, still sticky. Still attached to the knob. But torn. Torn from the outside. Last night was the worst. I was in bed. Lights off. Phone charging across the room. I just started to drift off when I heard it. The doorknob. Turning. Not shaking. Not loud, just a slow, deliberate turn. Like whoever was on the other side thought maybe I hadn't locked it. But I had. The lock clicked against the turn, and I heard the handle stop, pause, then let go. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just laid there in the dark, sweating into my sheets. Heart hammering so loud I was sure he could hear it. Through the door. And then knock. 1. Soft. Right. In the middle of the night, I waited. Counted. 5 seconds. 20. Then I got up and looked through the peephole. And he was closer than usual, leaning forward just slightly. His face half in shadow, smiling. But this time, he raised his hand. He waved. Part 2. The wave should have been nothing. A tiny movement. A stupid gesture. But it wasn't. It was the way he held it. Slow, gentle, like we were old friends sharing a private joke. Like he knew exactly what I looked like on the other side of the door. Like he could see me, even though he shouldn't have been able to. I stepped back from the peephole so fast I almost tripped. I didn't grab a weapon. I didn't call the cops. I just stood there in the middle of my living room, shaking so hard I could feel my teeth clicking. I didn't sleep after that. I sat with every light on, staring at the door, waiting for another knock. But it never came. At some point around dawn, I heard his door open, then close. Quiet footsteps faded down the stairs. He always left early, before most people were awake. Like he had somewhere very specific to be, or something very specific to watch. I made myself go to work that morning. I thought being around other people might help me reset my brain. But I couldn't stop replaying the wave in my head. That subtle curl of his fingers, too personal, too familiar. At lunch, I Googled him. Or at least I tried to. I only had a first initial and a last name from the mailbox row, but nothing came up except some old directory records and an abandoned Facebook page with no photos. No job listings. No relatives. No past addresses. It was like he barely existed. I told myself I was overreacting, paranoid, maybe traumatized from the breakup, maybe lonely. Maybe I was just letting the quiet of this building get to my head. But then, around 3 p.m., my phone pinged with a notification, motion detected. Front door camera. My blood ran cold. I opened the video. Static for the first second. Then it cleared just enough to see a shape. A person. Standing too close to the camera, not facing it, facing my door. He didn't knock. Didn't try the handle. He just stood there, inches away, shoulders rising and falling like he'd run to get there. I rewound it 10 seconds. The hallway was empty. He'd appeared out of nowhere. I scrubbed through again, frame by frame. And that's when I realized his head wasn't facing straight ahead. It was tilted toward the camera, like he knew exactly where it was. I left work early. By the time I got home, the hallway was empty. His door was shut. Mine was exactly how I left it, but something was off inside. The air smelled faintly like cologne. Not a scent I owned. Something sharp and powdery, like old aftershave mixed with dust. I went still. Every hair on my arms lifted. Then I saw it. My bedroom door. Closed. I never shut it. Not once since moving in. I hated the way it made the apartment feel smaller. I stood in the entryway, keys in hand, backpack still on one shoulder, staring at that closed door like it was breathing. I don't know how long I stood there. 5 minutes? 10? Eventually I whispered, "Is someone in there?" The silence that followed was so thick it felt heavy. My chest tightened. My vision went blurry around the edges. I backed out of the apartment, grabbed my phone, and called the police. They arrived fast, 2 officers. Friendly, tired, clearly used to noise complaints. Not actual emergencies. They swept the whole apartment. Bedroom, closets, bathroom, kitchen. Under the bed. Behind the curtains, nothing. Probably a draft, one of them said. To close a door? I asked, voice tight. He shrugged. Air pressure can do weird things. Yeah, okay, air pressure. Sure. The other officer asked if I had enemies. Any exes with keys? Any reason someone would want to mess with me? No, I said. Too quickly. Maybe he saw the lie in my eyes because he softened. Look, sometimes apartments just feel creepier than they are. The old buildings, the sounds, the neighbors you never see. The neighbor I do see is the problem, I whispered before I could stop myself. His eyebrows lifted. 6B. I froze. How do you know that? The officers exchanged a tiny look. Barely noticeable. Just heard a few tenants mention him, the older one said. What did they say? He hesitated. Nothing serious. Just that he keeps to himself. Some people find that unsettling. That wasn't what he meant. And we all knew it, but they didn't dig. Didn't comfort. They just took my statement, told me to call if I saw anything real, and left. As soon as they were gone, the apartment felt too quiet again, too dim. I turned every light back on. And that's when I noticed the new sound. A faint, rhythmic tapping. Not from my apartment. From the wall. The wall I shared with 6B. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Long pause. Tap. The first time I saw him out there with a shovel, it was a Tuesday morning. Around 6:30 a.m. I remember because I had just stepped out onto my back porch with my coffee. Still wearing pajama pants, planning to water my little container garden before the heat kicked in. That's when I noticed him, my neighbor, Mr. Harley from 2 yards over. He was already out in his backyard, dressed in full jeans and a flannel, soaked in sweat, digging a hole, a big one. At first, I assumed it was for a tree or maybe a garden project. Something innocent. But there was something off about the way he moved. Slow, methodical. Like every shovel of dirt was part of a ritual. He wasn't landscaping. He wasn't measuring. He was just digging. And he kept doing it. Every day. For weeks. Mr. Harley had lived in the blue house at the end of the cul-de-sac for over a decade. From what I'd heard, he was quiet, kept to himself. Used to live there with his wife until she passed a few years back. I'd never spoken to him. Not really. Just a wave here or there when I passed his place during my morning jogs. He had a sort of sunken look to him. Deep wrinkles around the eyes, skin like parchment, and this hollow stare like he was always halfway somewhere else. You know how some people seem like they never left a moment in time? That was him. Like part of him was still back in the day his wife died. But when he started digging, that's when I noticed something had changed. He was obsessed. The hole got deeper, wider. At first, I thought it was just me noticing. But then other neighbors started whispering about it too. Did you see Harley again this morning? That hole's almost 6 feet deep. Do we call someone? There was this weird line between concern and discomfort. No one wanted to get involved because, technically, the guy hadn't done anything wrong. It's not illegal to dig in your own backyard. But something about it felt wrong. Wrong like mold under floorboards. Like something you don't look at too long. I finally got a closer look one evening. It was late, almost 9:30, and I was taking the trash out to the alley when I saw the light from his backyard flicker on. One of those harsh, yellow motion lights. I stopped near the side of my garage and peeked over the fence. There he was, still digging. No brakes. No water. Just this relentless robotic motion. Scoop, dump, repeat. But it wasn't just a hole anymore. He'd made more of them. Smaller ones. All around the yard. I counted 5, perfectly spaced. All about the same size. I thought about calling out, asking if he was okay. But then he did something that made my blood go cold. He stopped mid-scoop. And turned to look directly at me. I hadn't made a sound. I was behind a fence, in shadows, but he stared right through me, like he knew I was there. Ducked out of sight and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I told myself I imagined it. I even tried to laugh it off when I mentioned it to my neighbor Kelly, who lived between us. "You sure he saw you?" she asked. Double quotes. "No. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I was just paranoid." Kelly frowned. "He's been out there a lot, huh?" "Every day." She hesitated, then said, "I think he's burying something." "What, like trash?" "No, something else." Her eyes flicked toward his backyard. I swallowed. "Like what?" She shook her head. "I don't know. My dog hasn't been right since he went near that fence." Kelly had a golden retriever. Sweet, friendly, barked at butterflies. "A week ago," she said. "He ran up to the back corner like he smelled something, and then he froze. Wouldn't go near it since. And the smell. I thought it was maybe fertilizer, but what?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I finally called it in, anonymous tip. Just said there was a resident in my neighborhood exhibiting strange behavior. That the smell was getting worse. That he might need a wellness check. They sent out a patrol car the next afternoon. I watched from my upstairs window. 2 officers talked to Harley for about 10 minutes near the front porch. He stood there, hands hanging limp at his sides, just nodding occasionally. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but one of the officers pointed toward the backyard. Harley turned his head slowly, then looked back at them and shook his head. Eventually, they left. That night, he started digging again, but something had changed. He was faster now. Like whatever restraint had been holding him back was gone. The holes weren't neat anymore. They were frantic, uneven. Dirt sprayed across the lawn. He was sweating harder, breathing louder, grunting with each scoop, like he was working against something under the soil. And that's when I noticed what scared me most. There were objects in the dirt. I saw one, half buried near the edge of the biggest hole. Looked like a shoe, muddy, old, but definitely a shoe. Then a plastic bag, then something that looked like bone, not big, not human, but too real to ignore. I tried to tell myself it was animal remains. Maybe he hit a squirrel nest. Maybe it was just trash buried deep over the years. But the deeper he went, the more of them I saw, and every time he'd stop, stare at it for a long moment, and then cover it back up. Like he knew what he was finding, like he remembered putting it there. Then, one night, everything stopped. No lights, no sound, no digging. I waited up until 2 a.m., watching from the back window. Nothing. The holes sat open like open graves, yawning in the moonlight. One was partially filled in, like he'd changed his mind halfway through. I thought maybe he'd finally snapped. That the police came back. That someone had intervened. But then, around 3:14 a.m., I heard something else. Knocking. Not at my door. At my back fence. 3 soft knocks. Measured. like someone wanted me to hear it, but didn't want the neighbors to. I froze in my kitchen, didn't move, didn't even breathe. Then slowly, I reached for the back door curtain and peeled it back a few inches. The yard was empty, but the gate, the one that led between my yard and his, it was open, wide open. Part 2, the gate between our yards was never unlocked. Ever. I knew because I'd tried using it once when I first moved in, thinking it might be a shortcut to the alley. The latch was rusted shut. I had to climb over it instead, but now, it hung wide open, creaking slightly in the breeze, and the smell drifting through it. God, it hit me so hard, I had to cover my mouth. Not trash. Not fertilizer. Not sewage, something sweet and sour at the same time. Like meat left in the sun. Like a freezer that lost power for a week. I let the curtain fall back into place and stepped away from the door. No. This wasn't right. This wasn't normal. This wasn't something you ignore and go back to bed after. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, but I didn't press call, because through the glass, through the darkness, through that half-open gate, I saw movement. Slow, uneven, a shape, stepping into my yard. He was barefoot, and he was carrying the shovel. I turned off every light in the house. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. My heart felt too big for my chest, slamming against my ribs hard enough to make my vision pulse. I crept upstairs, keeping low, hiding in the dark. I didn't know if he'd seen me. I didn't know why the gate was open. I didn't know what was in the holes he'd been digging every day for weeks. I just knew I needed to get somewhere he couldn't see me. Somewhere high, quiet, above the windows. The upstairs hallway was pitch black. The carpet muffled my footsteps. I held my breath and moved toward my bedroom, every shadow feeling alive around me. Then I heard the sound, the bat door handle turning. Slow, deliberate. Metal clicking against metal. He was trying to get in. I backed into my bedroom and shut the door softly, praying the hinges didn't squeal. Pressed myself against the far wall and sank to the floor. My phone screen lit my face just enough to see the sweat dripping from my hairline. I finally hit call. It rang once, twice. A voice answered. 911. What's your emergency? I whispered as quietly as I could. Someone is trying to get into my house. The dispatcher asked for my address. I gave it, choking on the words. She told me to stay on the line. Told me officers were being sent. Told me not to confront the intruder. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Downstairs. The door handle finally. Stop. Silence. Then call on tap. Not at the door. Not on the glass. On the wall beneath me. A gentle tap. Tap. He was inside my house. I bit down on my fist to keep from screaming. Dispatcher's voice was a faint hum in my ear now. I couldn't make out the words. Everything felt like it was underwater. Like my brain was drifting away from me. His footsteps began moving through the kitchen. Slow, soft, careful. He knew the house wasn't his. He knew someone was home. And he was trying not to make noise. My stomach twisted so hard, I thought I'd throw up. He moved into the living room. Next, I pictured him standing there in the dark. Shovel dangling loosely from one hand. Head tilted in that way I'd seen through the fence, listening. Searching, he walked toward the stairs. Each step creaked, wood groaning under his weight. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. He's coming upstairs, I whispered. We're almost there, the dispatcher said. Stay where you are. Lock the door if you can. I couldn't. My bedroom door didn't have a lock. He reached the top of the stairs. I could tell because the sounds changed. No more steps. Just breathing now. Deep, labored, wet. Then he started down the hallway. The house was so quiet. I could hear his bare feet sticking slightly to the hardwood, peeling up soft with each step. I curled myself into the smallest shape I could make. tucked in the corner. Breathing shallow. Please hurry, I whispered into the phone, tears dripping onto the carpet. I heard him stop outside my bedroom door. Silence. The blinking started on a Thursday. The exact time burned into my brain. 12:01 a.m. I was scrolling through my phone in bed, half asleep, when the overhead light blinked twice, off on. Off on, in perfect rhythm. At first, I didn't think much of it. Old building, janky wiring. My place was built in the 60s and updated just enough to pass an inspection, so a light flickering didn't scream horror story. But when I turned it off and rolled over to sleep, something about it lingered. The precision of it. The timing, like someone had meant to do it. The next night, same time, 12:01 a.m., the light blinked again. 2 slow pulses. No storm, no flicker in the rest of the house. Just my bedroom light. Off, on, off, on. I stared at it from my bed, heart suddenly way too loud in my ears. My dog, Waffles, perked up at the same moment, not barking, but alert, watching the ceiling with this quiet focus that made my skin prickle. The next day, I swapped out the bulb, bought a brand new LED from the hardware store, and installed it before sundown. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Night 3. 12:01 a.m. 2 blinks. Again. This time, I was ready. I'd left my phone recording on a tripod, facing the ceiling. I sat up the second the light pulsed and stopped the recording with shaking hands. When I replayed the footage, it showed exactly what I saw. 2 clean blinks. No buzzing. No flutter. Not like a bulb struggling to stay alive. These were deliberate, even, controlled, timed. That's when the fear settled in, the real kind. The sick kind. The type that makes your whole body feel too tight, like you're shrinking inside your own skin. Because I knew something now. It wasn't the light. Something or someone was doing this. I told myself it had to be electrical. Something in the wall. Maybe the switch was going bad. So the next morning, I called the landlord. He showed up the same afternoon. Greg, mid-50s, always in cargo shorts no matter the season. I explained everything. The blinks. The timing, how it only happened at night. Greg gave me that look. The one people use when they're trying real hard not to say you sound insane. Still, to his credit, he checked the switch, the wiring, even the breaker. Said everything looked fine. New even. Could be EMF interference, he mumbled. From what? Neighbors' tech. Strong signals sometimes mess with smart bulbs. It's not a smart bulb. He paused. Then shrugged. Probably nothing. Probably nothing. Classic. That night, I sat up in bed with the overhead light off. The lamp by my nightstand was on, dim and warm. At 12 o'clock, I opened my camera again and set it to record. Watched the red light blink. 12:01 came, and this time, the lamp blinked. Twice. I swear to you, my body turned to ice. My limbs didn't respond for a full minute. This wasn't a bulb. It wasn't a circuit. Something was choosing. And worst of all, Waffles didn't move. He just stared at the bedroom wall. The one that faced my neighbor's apartment. I live in a small duplex. One thin wall separates me from apartment B. I'm A. The woman who lives there moved in a few months after me. Never got her name. Never spoke beyond a nod or an awkward wave at the mailboxes. She was quiet. Barely noticeable. Always in a hoodie. Always looking down when she walked past. But the last few weeks, I'd started hearing strange sounds through the wall. Tapping, dragging, muttering, like she was pacing late at night. Sometimes whispering to herself. Sometimes whispering to someone else. The walls are thin, yeah, but this was something else. I'd started hearing it from across the room. The next night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with every light on, pretending to watch TV, but my eyes kept drifting toward the hallway. Toward the dark rectangle of my open bedroom door. At 12 o'clock, I felt sick. Like my body knew what was coming. I didn't even set up the camera. I didn't want to see it again. 12:01 hit, and I swear to God, this time, every light in the house blinked. 2 perfect pulses. Off, on, off, on. Even the fridge light, even the porch light. Waffles howled, a sound I'd never heard from him before. High and long and panicked. Something had changed. Something had crossed over. I made a decision I regret more than anything. I knocked on my neighbor's door. It was 12:05 a.m. and my hand was still trembling as I stood there, heart jackhammering in my throat. The porch light above me flickered once, just once, then stayed on. I was about to walk away when the door cracked open. She stood in the gap, face barely visible behind the chain lock, eyes wide, skin pale, breathing shaky. I forced a smile. "Hey, sorry, I know it's late. I've been having weird electrical stuff happen. And I wasn't sure if maybe you were too." She didn't say anything, just stared at me. Then, finally, in the softest voice, "It always starts with the lights." I blinked. "Wait, what?" She slowly closed the door again and locked it. Part 2, she said it like she'd been waiting for someone to ask. "It always starts with the lights." And then she shut the door. Just like that. I stood on her porch for a solid minute, replaying her voice in my head. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Calm, resigned, like someone reading from a script they'd memorized too well. She didn't ask what kind of flickering. Didn't act confused or skeptical. She already knew. I didn't sleep that night. I locked every window, pushed furniture in front of the doors, kept the lights on until sunrise. But the second the sky turned gray, something in me shifted. Like maybe I could take control of this. Maybe I was letting fear spiral into something bigger than it was. Maybe she was just strange. Maybe the lights were just faulty. Maybe I was exhausted, paranoid, and way too online. So, stupidly, I decided to reset my sanity. I took a shower. I went to a cafe. I texted friends. I took Waffles on a long walk around the lake. For the first time in a week, I felt normal. That lasted until I came home. And saw the lights were already on. I never leave the lights on. In the day. Not when I'm not home. But every single bulb was lit when I opened the door. Warm, humming, waiting. And the air inside was hot. Like the house had been cooking all afternoon. Every bulb radiating heat nonstop. Waffles refused to come in at first. He stood on the porch, tail between his legs, growling low in his throat. Something had been in here, watching, waiting. I walked through the rooms, hand on my pepper spray, calling out, "Hello?" Even though I didn't want an answer. No one responded. But in the bedroom, I found something new on my nightstand, facing the bed. A folded piece of paper. I didn't write it. I didn't leave it. And I never let anyone into my house. There were only 3 words on it. 2 more nights. I ran next door. Didn't care about looking crazy. Pounded on the woman's door until my knuckles hurt. She opened it after the 3rd knock. No chain this time. Just her pale face staring at me like she expected this. What the hell is going on? I asked. She didn't answer. I held up the paper. "Did you leave this?" Her eyes dropped to the note. And I swear, she flinched like it burned her. "No," she whispered. "But I got one too." I stared at her. Then she opened her door wider and let me in. Her apartment was almost identical to mine, but every window was blacked out with heavy curtains. No mirrors. No overhead lights. Just small dim lamps in every room. And taped over each switch, in thick Sharpie, "Do not turn on after midnight." He sat on her couch while she boiled tea water in a tiny kettle. Her hands were shaking the whole time. "My name's Mel," she said, sitting across from me. I told her mine. "I'm sorry I didn't warn you sooner," she said. "I thought maybe it skipped this unit. That maybe you were safe." "From what?" She looked at me, eyes bloodshot. "It starts with the blinking," she said. "Always the same pattern. Always at 12:01. "Okay, but what is it?" She hesitated. "I don't know. I've never seen it. Not fully. But you've lived here longer. You must have." She cut me off. "Everyone who's seen it doesn't live here anymore." The silence between us was suffocating. "I didn't believe it either," she whispered. "Until I did. Mel told me about the previous tenant in my unit. A guy named Sean, early 30s, quiet, lived alone. Like me. The blinking started 2 weeks after he moved in. First in the bedroom, then other rooms. Then appliances started acting up, fridge light, microwave display, even the TV would cut out. Then flicker on by itself at 12:01 a.m. She tried to warn him. Left a note under his door. He laughed it off. Night 7, he knocked on her door, pale and shaking. Said he heard something inside the walls whispering to him, saying it was almost time. Night 8, he packed a bag, said he was leaving. But he didn't. His front door was open the next morning. Lights on, his phone sitting face down on the couch. He was gone. Not missing, just gone. No trace. No note, no car moved. No luggage. Not even a toothbrush missing. "I still hear things in his apartment sometimes," Mel said quietly. "Footsteps. Doors closing. But no one's ever come back for his stuff." I swallowed, hard. "And now it's your turn." That night I didn't go home. I slept on Mel's couch, or tried to. The lamp stayed on. The place stayed warm. Neither of us spoke after midnight. When 12:01 came, I felt it like a punch in the gut. Her hallway light blinked twice, then nothing. She just stared at the floor. Eyes glassy. "What happens after the final night?" I whispered. She didn't answer. Night 8. I couldn't avoid it anymore. Something told me if I wasn't home at 12:01, it'd come find me somewhere else. I prepped like I was going into a bunker. Salt across the thresholds. Every camera I owned recording. Waffles locked in the bathroom, safest room in the house. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, waiting. It was just a soccer ball. That's what I kept telling myself. Just a stupid ball that rolled into the neighbor's yard. If it hadn't hit that fence post and bounced just wrong, I never would have gone near their house. Never would have seen the window. Never would have looked down. Never would have seen the hand. The McClarys lived 3 houses down. Older couple, quiet, friendly in that surface level suburban way. You know, the wave from the driveway, give out candy on Halloween. Sprinkle their grass twice a day kind of friendly. Their house always creeped me out a little. Though not because it looked haunted or anything. If anything, it was too perfect. Pale gray siding. White trim. No weeds, no clutter, not even a garden gnome out of place. But it always looked still, like no one ever moved inside. Like the air around it didn't breathe. That afternoon, I was kicking the ball around the yard with my niece. She's 6, obsessed with soccer, refuses to play unless I pretend to be the goalie. I was messing around, deliberately missing kicks to make her laugh. When she launched one hard across the yard, it soared clean over the fence and into the McClary's lawn. "Go get it," she shouted, giggling. I hesitated. It was just a ball. Just a neighbor's yard. But something in my gut twisted. Still, I climbed the fence. The McClarys weren't home. Their car was gone, blinds shut tight like always. The backyard was spotless, trimmed grass, white lawn chairs no one ever sat in. A bird bath with no birds. The ball sat near the far corner, just by the basement window. I walked over, still glancing at the house like it might wake up and see me. And that's when I noticed it. The window wasn't like the others. It was open. Just a crack. Barely enough to fit a hand through. But enough. The glass was dusty, smudged from the inside. And there was a strange, sour smell in the air, like mildew and iron. I bent down to grab the ball and saw it, a hand, pressed against the glass. From the inside, I froze. It was pale, small, fingers spread slightly, palm flat to the window, not moving, not waving, just there. I stared for a full 5 seconds before I stumbled back. The hand didn't move. It stayed pressed to the glass, perfectly still. No twitch, no breath fog, no shadow behind it. I wanted to believe it was a mannequin. Maybe they were storing old Halloween decorations. Maybe it was a doll, but the fingers, they were too real. I grabbed the ball and ran. I didn't sleep that night. I kept picturing it. The angle of the wrist, the pink nail on the thumb, the slight bend in the middle finger, like it had just touched the glass. I almost convinced myself it was nothing, until the next night. I was brushing my teeth when I glanced out the window. From my upstairs bathroom, I can see the McClary's backyard if the leaves are thin enough, and I noticed a faint yellow glow, like a flashlight. From the basement window, it moved, once, then again, then vanished. No one was home. Their car still hadn't returned. I stood there for a long time, foam dripping from my mouth, toothbrush limp in my hand. Something was in that basement. The next morning, I walked by their house. Nothing looked out of place, but when I passed the side gate, I slowed. The basement window? It was closed now. And clean, wiped spotless. No dust, no handprint, not even a smudge, like someone had taken glass, cleaner, and gone over it from the inside. I didn't know what to do. Call the cops and say, "Hey, I think I saw a hand in my neighbor's basement, and now the window's clean?" They'd laugh me off the phone. So I waited. Watched. On Friday night, the McClarys came home. I saw the headlights in the driveway, the trunk opening, groceries being carried in. Their movements were stiff. No talking, no laughter, just mechanical. But when they reached the front door, Mr. McClary paused. And turned. He looked right at me. I ducked behind the curtain. My heart hammered. I waited 30 seconds, then peeked again. He was still there. Staring. Like he knew. Then, slowly, he went inside. And shut the door. Part 2. I didn't go outside the next day. Every time I thought about that pale hand, that sudden clean basement window, or the way Mr. McClary stared at me for far too long, my stomach twisted. But that night, Saturday, something happened that forced me back into their yard. It started with a voice, faint, muffled, coming through my open kitchen window. A child's voice. "Hello? Is someone there?" I froze mid-step. It came again, clearer this time. "Please, someone help." My blood went cold. It was coming from the direction of the McClary's yard, from the basement. I grabbed my phone. I should have called 911 right then. But something made me hesitate. The voice sounded so weak, so scared, like waiting even 1 minute might make a difference between reaching them in time or not. I slipped out my back door, crossed the yard, and climbed the fence as quietly as I could. The air in their yard felt different than mine, heavier, colder, like it didn't move right. My breath came out in quick, shaky clouds. The basement window was dark now, completely dark, but the voice came again. "Please," a whisper, just beneath the ground. I crouched by the window, my phone flashlight shaking in my hand. The glass was spotless, perfect, a mirrored. Something inside me screamed to run, but I pressed my face close and shone the beam down into the basement. At first, I didn't see anything. Then something shifted in the far corner of the room, a shape. Small. Child-sized. "Hello?" I whispered. The shape jerked, then slowly began to move into the light. A head, hair matted, face pale, a girl. 8, 9, barely standing on her own. She lifted one trembling hand toward the glass, the same way I'd seen the hand the first day, except now. It moved. She pressed her palm to the window, weak and shaking. My heart dropped to my ankles. "Are you okay?" I whispered. "What happened? Are you hurt?" Her lips didn't move. She didn't speak, but the voice behind me did. "She's not supposed to talk to visitors." I spun around so fast I dropped my phone. Mr. McClary stood 5 feet behind me, hands at his sides, face blank in the porch light. No expression, no surprise, like he'd simply walked outside for air and found me kneeling at his basement window. I heard something," I stammered. "I thought someone needed help." He stared at me, not blinking. Then in a low, even voice, "You shouldn't be in our yard." "I heard her," I said. "There's a girl in your... She's not supposed to talk," he repeated. His tone wasn't angry. It was instructional, like he was correcting the child. A door creaked open behind him. Mrs. McClary stepped out. Her eyes were wide. Too wide, like she hadn't blinked in days. She held something clutched against her chest, a bundle of blankets. "Come inside," she said to her husband. "It's already downstairs." Already downstairs. My stomach turned. Mr. McClary nodded and walked toward the porch without another word. Neither of them looked at me. Not even once. They went inside. The door shut. The porch light clicked off, and I was alone again. I scrambled for my phone, hands shaking so badly my nails scraped the dirt. Before I could unlock it, a small, pale hand pressed against the basement glass from the inside. Harder this time. Urgent. I leaned in. The girl's lips were moving. Now. Silent. Desperate. She wasn't making noise. She wasn't allowed to. My throat tightened. I pressed my palm to the glass where hers lay, and for the first time, I saw her clearly. Her eyes weren't scared. They were pleading. Begging. To be let out. Stood up and reached for the window frame. It wouldn't budge. I gripped it harder, pulling with everything I had. But it was sealed tight, locked from the inside. There was no latch. No hinge. No way in. That's when I noticed something tiny near the sill. Something my flashlight hadn't caught earlier. Scratches. Little ones. Dozens. Tiny fingernail marks, like someone had been dragging their hands across the inside of the frame for a long time. My breath caught in my throat. The girl pressed her hand harder, face now right against the glass. Her mouth formed one word that shook me to my core. "Run." I didn't. I should have. God, I should have. But I couldn't leave her there. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers, whispering into the phone that there was a child trapped inside the neighbor's basement, that she wasn't allowed to talk, that the window was sealed. They said officers were on the way. I stayed by the window. Girl backed into the shadows. Then I heard footsteps approaching inside the basement. Slow, heavy. Not hers. My breath fogged the glass. A tall shape moved into view. Not the girl. Something else. It stepped closer, closer, right into the faint triangle of light from my phone. And my blood turned to ice. It wasn't a person. It was once, but no longer in any way that made sense. Its limbs were too long, its posture too stiff, its head cocked at an unnatural angle, like it was listening to something far away. It didn't blink, didn't breathe, did nothing but stand inches from the girl. And then the girl's voice echoed in my head. "Run." So I did. I sprinted out of the yard, over the fence, into my house, and locked every door. I pressed my back to the wall and waited for the police. When they arrived, the McClarys answered the door calmly, smiling, polite, confused as to why anyone would claim a child was in their basement. Officers searched the house. Top to bottom. Kitchen, bedrooms, hallway, dining room. Then the basement. They were down there for 10 minutes. When they came up, They said there was nothing unusual. No child. No bed. No toys. No locked room. Just storage boxes. Tools. A workbench. And one small window. Perfectly clean. No. Scratches. No handprints. Nothing. They asked if I'd been drinking. If I'd been tired. If I saw an animal. If I had a history of hallucinations. I didn't even answer, because the whole time they spoke, I heard something, a faint tapping, from the direction of the basement window. The Craigslist ad just said, room for rent, quiet neighborhood, private bathroom, females preferred. It was cheap. Almost too cheap. But I was desperate. I had just gotten out of a breakup. The kind where everything you own fits into the backseat of your car, and you're crying in traffic because you forgot your toothbrush. I wanted somewhere temporary. Somewhere low pressure. The house was in a clean, older neighborhood. One of those long tree-lined blocks with cracked sidewalks and houses that all looked the same from the street. I met the guy out. Front. Tall, thin, maybe early 40s. Introduced himself as Derek. Said he owned the place outright. His parents left it to him. His handshake was weird, cold, limp, but I smiled and followed him inside. Anyway, that's how this all started. The room was fine. It wasn't fancy, just a twin bed. A little desk, beige carpet that smelled like dryer sheets. He said I had my own bathroom at the end of the hall, and that he worked nights, so I'd barely see him. Perfect. I moved in that weekend. At first, it really was fine. Derek was quiet. Barely home. He said he managed inventory at a supply warehouse on the edge of town. Left every night around 10 p.m. Came home close to sunrise. The first few nights, I barely saw him. Just a knock when he left. I'm heading out, he'd call. I'd say, okay, and that was it. But even when he wasn't there, the house never felt empty. It was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Listening quiet, like the walls were holding their breath. Started hearing things after about a week. It was little at first. Footsteps in the hallway, after he'd already left for work. The creak of a door opening when I knew mine was shut. Water running in the bathroom when I hadn't turned it on. The worst was the voice. It was just a whisper. Right behind my door. Are you awake? I froze the first time I heard it. The whisper came at exactly 3:12. Clear, calm, right at the edge of the wood. I didn't answer. I didn't move. Just laid there. Covers pulled to my chin, holding my breath for so long my chest burned. When I opened the door an hour later, heart pounding, the hallway was empty. No lights on. No sign of anyone. The next morning, I asked Derek if he'd come home early the night before. He just smiled, sipped his coffee, and said, nope, probably the pipes. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Not what he said, how he said it. Like he wanted to see if I'd push back. IDN single quotes T. After that, I started locking my door at night. It didn't matter. The sounds kept coming, always at 3:12, every night. The whisper. The soft knock. The footsteps. Like a ritual, like something was waiting. I even started leaving my phone recording overnight, just to prove I wasn't going crazy. The first 3 nights, nothing. But on the 4th, I listened to the audio and heard this faint, dry breath near the mic. And then, low and deliberate, you're next. I moved out of that room that same night, shoved everything into garbage bags and told Derek I was crashing with a friend. He barely blinked, didn't ask why. Didn't offer a refund. Just said, okay, let me know if you need help. Packing. Like he knew I'd leave, like they all did, because that was the part 1. Didn't find out until later, the part the girl at the Fayetteville coffee shop told me when I bumped into her by accident. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost and asked, did you live in the back room? When I said yes, her eyes filled with tears. She told me she used to live there, too, and that her toothbrush went missing the first week. Just like mine. Did. Part 2, the girl from the coffee shop said. Her name was Lena. She hadn't lived there long either. She only stayed 2 weeks. She didn't tell me everything at first. Just that she'd found my post on a sublet forum, recognized the address, and had to see if it was really that house. And when I told her about the whispering, the footsteps, the voice at 3:12 a.m., she went pale. Then she said, "Did you ever try the locked door at the end of the hallway?" My blood ran cold, because I had. It was just past the laundry closet, a narrow wooden door with a tarnished brass handle. I had tried it one night during my first week, just out of curiosity. It didn't budge. Derek had told me all the rooms were open, except that one, said it was just storage, and I didn't question it. But Lena looked me straight in the eye and said, "That's not a storage room." I asked her what was inside. She hesitated, then said, "I think he keeps something in there. Maybe someone." I blinked. "What?" I heard breathing behind the door. And one night, I swear I heard it whisper my name. I asked her if she'd told the cops. She laughed. A short, hollow sound. No one believes you when all you have is weird feelings and a creaky old hallway. But she told me something else the night she left. She had knocked on that door, hard, and someone had knocked back. After that conversation, I couldn't get it out of my head. I tried to convince myself it was just a creepy old house, and Lena was paranoid like me. Maybe we'd fed into each other's fear, but the whisper, the missing toothbrush, the voice on the recording. It all came back, and so did Derek's face, that flat, unreadable expression. Like he was watching something from behind his own eyes. That night I made a decision. I was going back to the house. Just one last time. To get the rest of my stuff, and check that room. I waited until I knew Derek would be gone. 10:15 p.m., like clockwork. I still had my spare key. I let myself in, holding my breath as I passed the kitchen, the hallway, the room I'd stayed in. Everything looked the same. Too clean. Too quiet. No TV, no music. Just the faint buzz of the old ceiling light. I went straight to the hallway. Straight to the locked door. I pressed my ear to it. Silence. Then. So faint I almost thought I imagined it. "Help." Voice. Low, hoarse from the other side. Grabbed a screwdriver from the laundry closet and started working the lock. My hands were shaking so hard, I dropped it. Twice. The lock was old, warped. I had to twist it hard just to make it budge. But finally, after what felt like forever, it gave. Click. I opened the door slowly. The smell hit me first, like mold, sweat, rotting wood, and something else. Inside was a narrow staircase. Leading down. No basement had ever been mentioned in the ad. Derek never said a word about a lower level, but it was there. Bare concrete steps, exposed walls, one flickering light bulb swinging from a cord, and at the bottom, another door. Metal, reinforced, with a sliding bolt across the outside. Not a door meant to keep someone out, a door meant to keep something in. I crept down, heart slamming in my chest. At the bottom, I pressed my ear to the metal. Silence. Then, tap, tap, tap. Fingernails. Scratching from the inside. I grabbed the bolt. My brain screamed at me not to leave, to run, to pretend I'd never come back here. But I slid it open. The door creaked as it moved. Inside, darkness. The smell was worse now, like death that had been waiting. I lifted my phone, turned on the flashlight. The beam hit a bed frame, a mattress, chains bolted to the floor. And in the corner, hunched, thin, shivering, a woman, eyes sunken, skin pale. She blinked into the light like it hurt. Her lips moved. "Don't let him know I'm gone." I nearly dropped the phone. I ran to her. She flinched, But when I said, "I'm here to help," her whole body shook. I wrapped a blanket around her, helped her to her feet. She could barely walk. Her wrists had bruises. Her voice was nearly gone. I asked her how long she'd been there. She said weakly, "I don't know. He brings girls in. They don't all leave." That was it. That was all I needed. We got out. We made it to my car. I called 911 from the parking lot down the street. I didn't care what they believed. I told them everything. This time, they came fast. By the time the police arrived at the house, Derek still wasn't home. They found the room, the woman, the chains. And more. They found belongings. Things from other women, hairbrushes, underwear, a small wooden box full of ID cards. Some of those women were still missing. Some were confirmed dead. He'd kept their fins. As trophies. They arrested Derek the next day. He didn't resist, didn't deny anything. He just looked at the officers and said, flatly, she opened the door. I didn't tell her to. The woman I helped survived. She was reported missing 6 months earlier. No one knows how long she was in that basement. She didn't talk much, but one thing she said chilled me to the bone. She said Derek always made the same joke when he brought someone new into the house. I prefer to rent long term. You know how every street has that one house? The one no kid wants to trick or treat at. The one with the lawn that's always a little too perfect, or the windows that are always dark. The one you pass a little faster when you're walking alone at night. On our street. That house was the one with the red curtains. They never moved. First noticed it the summer we moved in. Quiet cul-de-sac. Small town, typical post-divorce relocation. Mom said we needed a fresh start. I was 13, pissed off, and deeply uninterested in fresh anything. The neighborhood was fine. Lots of families, dads washing cars on Sundays, neighbors who waved too often. And at the end of the street, just before the woods started, was that house, perfect gray paint, uncut hedges, a door that never opened. And those curtains. Heavy, blood red, always drawn. No breeze ever moved them. No sunlight ever softened them. They just hung there, silent, still. At first, I thought someone lived there. The trash bins were always put out on Tuesdays like clockwork. The lawn got mowed every other Friday. Sometimes at night, I thought I saw a faint blue glow, like a TV flickering behind the curtains, but no one ever went in. No one ever came out, and no one on our street really talked about it. Whenever I asked my mom, she just shook her head and said, some people like their privacy. But the longer I lived there, the more I noticed things. Little things, like the mailbox, always empty. Like the porch, no footprints, no deliveries, no signs of life. And once, when I passed on my bike and looked a little too long, I swear I saw the curtain bend inward, like someone was watching me. There was one person who did talk about the house. Nico. He was the same age as me, lived across the street, and instantly adopted me as his new best friend the day we moved in. Don't look at the red curtain house, he said the second I mentioned it. It doesn't like it. It? I asked. He just nodded, serious as a heart attack. Everyone who goes near it gets weird. And no one lives there. Not really. I asked what he meant, but he wouldn't say more. Instead, he told me this story, the kind you're not supposed to believe, but can't forget. Years ago, a girl named Sarah lived on our street. Quiet, smart, walked past the house every day to school. One day, she told her mom she saw someone behind the curtains. A girl, pale, blinking too slowly, just standing there. The next day, Sarah was gone, just gone. No note, no signs of a struggle, nothing. Cops searched the woods, the school, the neighbors' houses, but not the red curtain house. No warrant, no reason. And no one could prove anyone lived there. Urban legend, My mom said when I told her. I tried to believe her, until Nico dared me to knock on the door. It was a dumb middle school thing. A summer evening, nothing to do, daring each other like idiots. "You knock," I said. "No way," Nico replied. "You're the new kid. It's tradition." I laughed it off. But part of me wanted to prove I wasn't scared. So I walked up the path. The porch creaked under my sneakers. The air smelled stale, like old paper and closed rooms. I raised my hand. Paused. Then knocked. Once, twice. Nothing. Nico giggled from the sidewalk. I turned to walk back, and that's when I heard it. A click, not the door. Curtain, sliding open just an inch. I turned fast, and through that tiny gap, I saw an eye, wide, gray, too shiny, not blinking, watching me. I ran. We didn't talk about it that night, but something changed after that. Started seeing the curtains more. Not moving, just being there. Always in my peripheral vision. Always too still. And I started waking up in the middle of the night. Sure, I'd heard a knock on my bedroom window. Our house sat diagonally from the red curtain house. My room faced the street. You couldn't see their windows directly from mine, not unless you leaned out. But sometimes, I swore I saw a red flash reflected in the glass. Once, I pulled the blinds up at 3 a.m. And across the street, in that same tiny gap in the curtains, there was a silhouette. Not moving, just watching. I stopped biking past the house, stopped walking near it at all. I even made my mom park farther down the street so I wouldn't have to pass it coming home from school. She thought I was being dramatic. "You're letting your imagination get the best of you," she said. But I knew what I saw, and then Nico stopped answering my texts. Part 2. Nico didn't disappear all at once. It happened slowly, like he was fading out. First, he stopped riding bikes with me after school. Then he stopped answering my texts, stopped coming outside. I'd knock on his door and his mom would say, "He's resting," or "He's not feeling well." But I could hear him inside, sometimes talking, sometimes pacing, sometimes whispering something I couldn't make out. And whenever I asked what was wrong, she'd just say, "Ever since he looked at that house too long, he hasn't been the same." She said it gently, matter of fact, like she was talking about a fever that just hadn't broken. I asked her what that even meant. She shut the door. I didn't know what to do. I was 13. No one believes a 13-year-old who says a house is wrong, or that a pair of curtains feels alive. But things in my room started changing. 2. At night, my blinds would be open. My nightlight would be off. My window latch would be loose, even though I checked it every night. My mom said it was sleepwalking. But I'd never sleepwalked a day in my life. Then one morning, I found something on my windowsill. A thin, red thread. Like the kind used to hem curtains. My dreams got strange. I dream I was standing in the street, staring at the house. The red curtains would open, slowly like a mouth. Something would stand behind them. Tall, still, head tilted. Like it was listening. And then I would wake up with the taste of dust in my mouth. I kept telling myself it was nothing. But then Nico's mom called mine, crying. Nico was gone. They found his shoes by the storm drain near the woods, but not him. Search. Dogs traced his scent halfway down the block, and then it just stopped, like he'd walked into a wall of air and vanished. People whispered about runaways, about predators, about the woods, but I knew exactly where he'd been looking last. Because the night before he disappeared, he'd left me a voicemail, 1 second long, just enough to hear him whisper, "Don't look at it." I tried to stay away. I really did. But when someone vanishes and you know something did it, something nobody else sees or believes, it's like gravity pulling you back. I lasted 2 days. The third night, I cracked. I stood in front of my bedroom window at midnight and stared across the street. The red curtains were as still as always, too still. The house was dark. The porch empty. The yard dead silent. I don't know what I expected. A face. A crack in the glass. A shadow, but what I got was worse. A hand slipped between the curtains. White, thin, motionless, pressed against the glass exactly where I had knocked months earlier. My throat closed. I opened the blinds further. The hand moved slowly and tapped on the window. Once, twice, three times. My knees buckled, because that was Nico's knock. A pattern he used on my door every afternoon. Tap, tap, pause, tap. I grabbed my phone and ran downstairs. My mom was asleep on the couch, TV flickering quietly. I didn't wake her. I just unlocked the front door and stepped outside. The air was heavy, damp, like the whole street was holding its breath. Every house was dark, except the red curtain. House. A faint light glowed behind the curtains. Not bright, just enough to show the silhouette standing there. Tall, rigid, still, like it wasn't human. But something else was there. Something smaller, lower to the ground, crouched near the base of the window. A second silhouette. I crossed the street, barefoot, heart pounding so hard it felt like my chest might burst. When I reached the sidewalk in front of the house, the silhouettes vanished. The curtains hung still again. Too still. I whispered, "Nico?" No answer. I whispered it again. And the curtains trembled. Just once. Like something behind them shivered. My voice cracked. "I'm not leaving until you answer." For a full 10 seconds. Nothing happened. Then. The curtains parted. Just an inch. Enough to see an eye. Not the same eye I saw months ago. This one was familiar. Brown, wide, terrified. Nico. His face was pale, pressed to the window. His mouth moved silently at first, like he was struggling to speak. Then I heard it. A whisper. Barely audible. "Help me." Tears blurred my vision. I reached out and pressed my palm to the glass. "Nico, I'm here. I'm gonna get you out," he jerked suddenly. Like someone yanked him back. The curtains slammed shut so hard the rod rattled. I screamed. His name impounded on the glass. No answer. Just silence. Then a shadow rose behind the curtain. Tall, still, tilting its head, watching me. The porch light snapped on. The front door creaked open. A woman stepped out. Old, gray hair, skin stretched thin like paper. I'd never seen her before. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Sweetheart," she whispered. "It's late. You should be in bed." I staggered back. "Where's Nico?" Her smile widened, too tight, like skin about to split. "Who's Nico?" "My friend," I stammered. "He's in your house. I just saw him." "No one's inside," she said gently. "Just me." She stepped forward, and I caught a smell. Dust. Basement air. Something old and wrong. She looked past me toward my house. "You're out very late," she said again. "You should go home." Then she reached toward me. Her hand brushed my wrist. Her fingers were ice. Cold. I ran. I don't even remember crossing the street. I just remember the feeling of her eyes burning into my back, and the way the red curtains pulsed as if something behind them was breathing. My mom woke up as I slammed the front door. I couldn't tell her. Not then. I just locked every window and curled up on the couch until sunrise. I didn't sleep. I didn't want to rent a house. I was perfectly fine with apartments, neighbors on every side, noise, foot traffic. All of it made me feel safe. But when I got the new job out in a quiet suburb, every apartment I could afford was either a health hazard or a crime scene. So when I found a little blue rental home tucked into a sleepy cul-de-sac, I took it. Cheap rent, privacy, a clean kitchen. It seemed perfect. But now I know why it was cheap. Why no one else took it. There's a face in my attic. I noticed the first weird thing the night I moved in. I was still unpacking boxes around midnight when I heard it, a soft thud above the hallway, not a loud bang, just enough to make me pause. I looked up. The ceiling was flat except for the attic hatch, a square cut out above the hallway, with a pull string that hung just a little too low. I figured it was just the house settling. Old wood, creaky roof, wind maybe. I went back to unpacking, but the next night, same time, I heard it again. Thud. Right above my bedroom. I told myself not to worry. I hadn't even been up there yet. For all I knew, it was full of old junk, squirrels, or rotting insulation. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling, like there was something just above me, waiting. So I grabbed a flashlight and yanked the attic string. One afternoon, the ladder creaked as it unfolded. I stuck my head up into the attic and immediately gagged. It was hot, thick, like the air hadn't moved in decades. Dust floated like mist. Old insulation lined the floor, scattered with scraps of plywood and rusted nails. Cobwebs hung like curtains. I swept the light across the space. Nothing. Just shadows and silence. But just as I started to pull back down, I saw something. A little pile in the corner. Neat, deliberate. A small stack of Polaroid photos. I climbed in the rest of the way, my feet crunching on the boards. The photos were curled with age, dust sticking to their edges. They were all the same. Each photo showed the same room, my bedroom, taken from the exact same angle. From above. From the ceiling vent. One of them had my bed in it. Unmade, just like I'd left it that morning, which meant it was recent. I dropped the stack and backed out fast. I called the landlord immediately. He brushed it off. Probably just the last tenant messing around. Leave it by the trash. I'll toss it next time I'm by. I asked if anyone had access to the attic or if he'd been in the house since I moved in. He said no. Sounded annoyed. I pressed him harder. He just said, "It's just an old attic, kid." But I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling vent above me. It looked normal, but I kept thinking about the photos. Someone had been up there. Someone had been watching me. The next night, I taped a piece of paper over the vent. Nothing major, just a small strip, enough to tell if someone moved it. And then I set up my phone, aimed at the attic hatch in the hallway, recording overnight. Just in case. In the morning, the paper was gone, not torn, not fallen. Just gone. And when I checked the video footage around 3:28 a.m., I saw movement. The hatch wiggled. The ladder shifted slightly. And something dark, a shadow, moved just beyond the opening. I couldn't make out a face, but I could feel it watching. I called the cops. They searched the attic, said it was empty. No signs of recent disturbance. No signs of forced entry. They told me it was probably an animal. A raccoon. A draft. I showed them the Polaroids. They said, "You sure you didn't take these?" I asked if I could get the locks changed. They said there was no evidence of a break-in. I asked again. They said, "It's probably just in your head." That night, I locked every window, stacked chairs in front of the front and back doors, slept with the lights on. And just after 3 a.m., I heard it again. Creak, creak, thud, right above my ceiling. Right above me. Part 2. I laid in bed, frozen, staring at the ceiling vent. The sounds were getting louder. Creak, scrape, shift. It wasn't wind. It wasn't rats. It was steps. Slow, measured, directly above my head. I texted my friend, "Mia, I think someone's living in my attic." She wrote back, "That's not funny. I'm not joking. Call the cops." I already had. They didn't believe me. No one did. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. By sunrise, I had a plan. There was no lock on the attic hatch, just that flimsy string and folding ladder. I bought a motion-triggered camera and installed it in the hallway below. Aimed straight up, If anything opened that hatch again, I'd know. I also borrowed a friend's GoPro and duct taped it to a broom handle. That night, I cracked open the vent cover in my bedroom, the one facing down from the attic. I slid the GoPro up into the darkness and aimed it into the crawl space above my ceiling. Hit record. Waited. In the morning, I played the footage back. Most of it was nothing. Insulation, beams, dust. But at 1:42 a.m., the frame shifted. Something had passed in front of the lens. I rewound. It. Paused. Frame by frame, and there it was. A face. Not close. Just barely in view, but definitely a face. Pale, thin, eyes wide open. No expression. Just watching. I lost it. I sent the clip to the landlord. Told him I was breaking the lease. Told him I'd go public if he didn't let me out of the contract. His response? That part of the house isn't supposed to be accessible. It was sealed off years ago. Sealed off years ago. So either someone broke in. Or someone never left. I packed that night. Didn't care about security deposits or if it made me look insane. I just wanted out. But as I was boxing up kitchen stuff, I noticed something weird out the back window. The house next door, the one I thought was empty. The curtain shifted, just a sliver. Enough to see a shape inside. Then the porch light flicked on. No one came out, but someone was there. I stepped outside onto the back porch. The air felt thick, dead quiet. I looked up toward my attic vent and saw something I will never forget. A hand, pale and long-fingered, reaching out of the vent, slowly pulling the cover off from the inside. I ran back inside and slammed the door. Seconds later, bang from the ceiling. Then, again. Bang, bang, bang. Not like footsteps anymore, like fists. Pounding. I called 911 again, screaming this time. While I waited, I stood under the attic hatch, shaking, watching the string sway ever so slightly. Then it stopped, like someone was right above it, perfectly still. The operator told me to wait outside. I ran onto the lawn barefoot, clutching my keys and my phone. Eyes never leaving the house. Police arrived 5 minutes later. They went in, checked the attic. Again. This time, they found something. Not a person. Not alive anyway, but evidence. Stained blankets, a half-eaten can of beans, a bucket, and a pile of Polaroids. Not just of me. Of everyone who had lived there before. An EWOMEN men. Kids. All taken from above. Sleeping, changing, at their desks. Whoever lived up there had been watching tenants for years. And no one had ever found him. Then they checked the house next door. The vacant one. It had been sold 10 months ago. To a man named Walter Cray. No driver's license. No job listed. No social media. Just a wire transfer and a signature. The cops didn't find him in the attic. They found him in the walls of the house next door. A hidden crawl space. Rotten bedding. Trash. More photos. And one journal. Handwritten. Repeating one phrase over and over. Page after page. I live where they don't look. He was arrested without a fight. Didn't say a word. Didn't need to. The police found maps, floor plans of my house. My room, notes on my habits, on what time I showered. What nights I stayed up late. Which drawers I kept unlocked. He never planned to hurt me. That's what they said. But somehow, that was worse. He just watched. I moved 2 days later. New city. New place. Top floor of an apartment. No attic. No neighbors on top. But I still wake up at 3 a.m. most nights. Not because I hear something, but because I think I do. And sometimes, when I can't fall back asleep, I check the vent above my bed, just to make sure the face isn't there, watching me sleep. Again. The first note was tucked under my welcome mat. Not taped. Not folded. Just placed. No envelope. No signature. Just one line, handwritten in tiny block letters. Your bedroom light was on at 3:17 a.m. I stood there on my porch, coffee in hand, reading it 5 times. It wasn't a joke. There was no smiley face. No prankster vibe. Just plain, cold observation. And the worst part? They were right. I live alone in a small duplex on a quiet street. One of those middle-of-nowhere neighborhoods where everyone keeps their heads down, mows their lawns, and minds their business. I'd only lived here 6 weeks. Hadn't made any friends. Hadn't met the neighbors. Hadn't given anyone a reason to watch me. But someone was, and they'd been watching closely. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept getting up, checking the locks, looking out the window, making sure the bedroom light was off. At exactly 3:17 a.m., I stood by the window and watched the street. Silent, empty, still. No cars, no lights, just black windows and swaying trees. But I felt it. Like eyes on the back of my neck, like a camera lens focusing in. The next morning, there was another note. This one wasn't under the mat. It was inside the screen door. You make coffee at 6:42. You always forget the sugar. I checked the doorbell camera. Nothing. No motion alert. No footage. Just static from 3 o'clock to 7 a.m. I checked the backyard. No footprints. Nothing. But the notes kept coming. Every day. A new one. You left the bathroom light on for 11 minutes. You stared into the fridge 3 times before picking something. You wear the red hoodie when you're anxious. They knew me, not just my habits, my mood. How I moved, what I hesitated on, where I looked. And that's when I realized they weren't watching from the outside. They were inside the house. I tore the place apart, checked for cameras, microphones, holes in the drywall, tampered outlets. Even paid a tech guy off Craigslist to sweep the place. He found nothing. If someone's spying on you, he said, they're very, very good. I stopped sleeping in the bedroom, started crashing on the couch. Back against the wall, kitchen light on low, but even there, the notes kept coming. One morning, I woke up to find a single sheet of paper on my nightstand, right where my phone usually charges, but my phone was gone. The note just said, you look peaceful when you sleep. You should do it more often. Soon, you won't. I moved out that day. Told the landlord there was a break-in. Told him I didn't care about the deposit. Just left everything. Furniture, kitchen stuff, all of it. I stayed at a motel off the highway for a week. And the first night, it was the first time I'd truly slept in weeks. No sounds. No notes. Until night 3. I came back to the motel after grabbing dinner. Room was locked, nothing looked touched. But when I opened the bathroom mirror cabinet, there it was, folded in half. Same handwriting. This mirror doesn't suit you. I liked the old one better. Part 2, I stared at the note in the mirror cabinet until my vision blurred. This mirror doesn't suit you. I liked the old one better. He had followed me. This wasn't just someone messing around. This was someone obsessed, someone who didn't care about locks, doors, cameras, because they'd already been inside my life. And now, they were still watching. I checked out of the motel that night, didn't even pack. Just walked away with my keys and my wallet. I called the police again. They filed another report. Another shrug. Another, we'll follow up. They didn't follow up. No one ever does when you say, I'm being watched and I don't know how. I stayed with a friend for a few weeks. Mia. She didn't ask too many questions. Just let me crash on her pull-out couch and pretended not to notice how I flinched. At every knock on the door. She had a little terrier named Milo. Friendly. Barked at squirrels. But he never barked at the door. Except once. One night. I woke up around 2 a.m. The room was pitch black. I hadn't turned off the nightlight. I sat up and realized Milo was standing by the window. Completely still, growling low in his throat. No barking. Just warning. I stood up, heart racing, and looked out the blinds. Nothing. Just the street. A parked car. A blinking porch light across the road. But in the morning, Mia found a note slipped under the door. Not folded. Not hidden. Just lying there. Face up. This place is too noisy. I miss the quiet. Come home. That's when I knew it wasn't about the house. It was about me. Mia wanted me to stay with family. I didn't have any. I told her I'd figure it out. That I'd get a P.O. box, change my name, move out of state. But none of that would matter, because he wasn't tracking my address. He was tracking me. I finally called the old landlord again, the one from the duplex. Begged him to tell me who lived in the other unit next door. He hesitated. Said he wasn't supposed to give out tenant info. I pressed him. Said it was an emergency. Said someone had been stalking me. Said I thought it was the neighbor. He got real quiet. Then he said something I'll never forget. That unit's been empty for months. Ever since the old man passed. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Wait, I said. What old man? Name was Emery something. Lived there 20 years. Loner. Real quiet. Always said hello to the mailman. No trouble. I swallowed. And he's dead? Yeah, died in his sleep. No family. Place has been sealed up ever since. I said, but I heard someone over there. Walking, talking, watching TV. I know someone was in there. The landlord paused. Then he said he had security cameras all over the property, inside and out. I made him let me in. I had to know. He met me there the next day, unlocked the other unit, and stepped aside. The place was dark, dusty, empty. No furniture. No dishes, just bare carpet and peeling paint. But in the back bedroom, there was a small folding table. And on that table, a monitor still plugged in, still humming, attached to a black tower CPU, and a tangled mess of wires. The screen showed a live split feed. My old living room, my old kitchen, my old bathroom, my old bedroom, all from hidden angles. From inside the walls, there were folders on the desktop, labeled by date, hundreds of video files, recordings of me brushing my teeth, doing laundry, sleeping, crying. I nearly threw up, but I opened one last folder. It was labeled AFDE, or inside were photos out of the motel, of Mia's house, of me, from outside windows, from across the street, from somewhere close. And the final image? A picture of me, standing in that exact room, looking at the screen. I turned to run, and the landlord grabbed my arm. Wait. I pulled away. But then he said, this isn't the only house. My blood froze. What? I didn't want to say anything, but you're not the first tenant this happened to. He looked at me. There've been others. He told me one woman lasted 6 months before leaving without a word. One man disappeared completely, rent paid months in advance. Groceries still in the fridge. Every single one complained about the same thing. Someone's watching me. The landlord always blamed bad wiring, paranoia, sleep deprivation. But it wasn't in their heads, because Emery, the sweet, quiet neighbor, wasn't just watching. He was teaching others how. The cops came. They took the footage, opened a case, told me they'd be in touch. That was a year ago. No one followed up. No one ever found out how he got into my motel, or Mia's place, or why the cameras still worked after he died. Because the watcher didn't die with Emery. He shared it. Somehow. Somewhere. Last week I moved again. New city. New phone number. New job. No forwarding address. But last night, I came home late and found something stuck to my front door. One single piece of paper. Folded. This time. Inside, it's not about where you live. It's about what you do. And you just looked into the camera. We never talked about the back fence, not when we moved in. Not during the neighborhood block party. Not even when my dog came home with scratches on her side and refused to go near it again. Everyone just ignored it. There was no rule, no sign, just an unspoken agreement. Don't look over the fence. Our backyard backed up to another property, separated by a 7-foot-tall wooden fence. No gaps, no windows. Just tall gray panels stretching across the property line like a barrier someone built in a hurry, not to keep people out, but to keep something in. We moved in mid-March. The trees were bare, the yard still soggy from winter. On our second night, I noticed it. The silence, not peaceful silence, not sleepy suburb quiet. This was different. No wind, no bugs, no rustling leaves. Just nothing. The air behind the back fence felt heavy, like sound didn't travel through it. At the housewarming barbecue, I brought it up jokingly while chatting with the neighbors. So what's up with the giant Berlin Wall back there? Everyone laughed, but it was a weird laugh. Forced. One guy, Jim, said, "Yeah, we all kinda learned to ignore that thing." Another woman added, "It's been there longer than any of us." I asked who lived on the other side. They all gave me the same answer: no one. I didn't buy it. Someone had to own that land. Someone had to be mowing, maintaining, existing. But I never saw anyone. No lights at night. No voices. No footsteps. Just that wall. Silent. We had an agreement. My wife and I demow the lawn. She'd do the garden boxes. Neither of us went near the back fence. Until the dog incident. It was around 9 p.m. I let Ruby out to pee. She was a golden mix, curious, dumb, friendly as hell. She bolted toward the back like she saw something, then stopped cold at the fence. Her hackles went up. She growled, a low, terrified sound I'd never heard from her before. Then she yelped. By the time I got to her, she was limping back toward the porch, bleeding from a long scratch across her side, like something reached through. But there are no gaps in that fence. No holes. No branches. Nothing. Just wood. We took her to the vet. Got her stitched up. They asked what happened. I didn't know how to answer. I said an old nail. But the scratch was clean. Too clean. Like a knife. We put up a small barrier to block her from going near the fence again, but she wouldn't even go near the backyard after that. She'd sit by the door and whine. A few nights later, I woke up at 2:47 a.m. because something was knocking. Knock. Not on the house. On the fence. 3 slow, deliberate hits. I looked out the bedroom window. The yard was empty. Still. Dark. No wind. I went outside with a flashlight, heart in my throat. No one was there. No footprints. No movement. But I noticed something else. The barrier we'd put up to keep the dog away from the fence. It was gone, like it had been pulled away. I brought it up to Jim the next morning. He looked around, checked if anyone was listening, and said, "We all hear it. Man. Sometimes it's knocking. Sometimes it's scratching. Sometimes it's humming." Humming? He nodded. Like someone singing real soft, right against the wood. "Have you ever looked over?" I asked. His face went pale. "No," he said. "None of us have. Not since the old guy." I asked who that was. He said, "Before your time. Lived here 10, 12 years back. Nice guy, didn't believe the stories. Said we were all paranoid. What happened to him?" Jim didn't blink. He brought a ladder out one night. Climbed it. Looked over. And? He moved out 3 days later. Just left. Didn't even sell the house. Left the keys in the mailbox. I asked the landlord. It was true. The guy before us broke his lease and bailed. No reason. No damage. Just vanished. 1 week later I heard it again. But this time, it wasn't knocking. It was breathing. Right outside our window. Slow. Deep, like something huge was standing just on the other side of the fence. I opened the Curtains. Nothing. But the breathing didn't stop. It went on for another 20 seconds, and then right before it stopped, I heard something that made my skin go cold. A voice. Almost. That's all it said. I didn't sleep. Neither did my wife. We agreed. No one goes near the fence. No matter what we hear. No matter what we think we see. We didn't even let Ruby out alone anymore. But the fence didn't care. It wanted us to break the agreement. The next night, someone knocked on our door. A kid, maybe 12, skinny, hair too long, wearing pajama pants. Said he lived 2 streets over. Said his dog ran into our yard and he needed help finding it. I looked past him. The street was empty. No parent. No flashlight. Just the kid. But when I asked him what kind of dog it was, he smiled and said, "Golden. Just like yours." Then he turned and walked straight toward the back fence. Vanished into the dark. Ran out after him. But the second I reached the edge of the yard, he was gone. I looked at the fence, and I swear, the wood looked wet, like something had licked it. That was last night. And now I'm sitting here writing this at 2:46 a.m. because I can hear it again. Not knocking. Not breathing. Not humming. Talking. Whispering my name over and over. Open. Look. Open. Look. I won't. God help me. I won't. Because I know what happens when you break the agreement. You don't get haunted. You don't get cursed. You get invited. And once you look over that fence, it sees you too.